On October 4th, 1997, Gunpei Yokoi sat passenger side while his friend and Nintendo executive drove along a narrow 2-lane highway in Japan. Yokoi was retired with plans to start his own game design company. As his friend drove, Yokoi parsed through ideas he had for a new handheld gaming device that was similar to an invention that you might know as the Game Boy. His thoughts were interrupted when the driver rammed into the back of a truck ahead of them. Both cars pulled over onto the cramped shoulder. Surprisingly, no one was hurt. Yokoi and the driver exit the vehicle to assess the damage when another car sideswipes them both. The driver is unscathed save for a few minor injuries. Yokoi, however, was not. His eyes grew dark as he slipped into unconsciousness. 2 hours later, Yokoi was pronounced dead at the hospital, forever extinguishing his talent and ingenuity. What should have been an open and shut case of death via car accident may not be as simple as it appears. Yokoi's tragic and untimely death is at the center of a conspiracy involving the Yakuza, the upper echelon of Nintendo, and ultimate betrayal. Welcome back to another video. I'm Sailor Slay, if you didn't know, and on my channel, I talk about nerd stuff mixed in with true crime, conspiracy, paranormal, etc., etc. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you, like me, also wish that someone other than Chris Pratt was the voice of Mario in the new Mario movie. We all love Nintendo. The massive video game and entertainment company has given the world multiple popular gaming franchises like Mario and Pokemon. Nintendo is a family-friendly company with devices and games that can appeal to all age groups. However, would you be surprised to learn that Nintendo actually has ties to a criminal enterprise called the Yakuza? In today's video, we're going to uncover the company's shady origins and discuss what really happened to Yokoi that night on October 4th, 1997. Was it merely just a car accident, or was it, like some conspiracy theorists believe, a hit placed on Yokoi by Nintendo themselves? Gunpei Yokoi was a famed Japanese video game designer known internationally as the father of the Game Boy. He was also involved in long-running series including Donkey Kong, Meteoroid, Mario Brothers. He had kind of a small part to play in the best video game of all time, Zelda. Don't fight me on that. Before he became a high-up executive in Nintendo, he had more working-class beginnings. He went to university for electronics and ended up getting a job on the assembly line at a Nintendo playing card or Hanafuda factory in the 1960s. Before long, the higher-ups noticed that Yokoi would make these little toys on his downtime. And by higher-ups, I mean the Hiroshi Yamauchi, okay? He is the president of Nintendo. Yamauchi ordered Yokoi to develop this extending arm toy for release, and it worked. This was actually a huge success for Nintendo. It was called the Ultra Hand, and it's how Nintendo became the family-friendly gaming company that we know today. And if you're wondering like what the toy was, it was actually like this little thing. I mean, this is kind of broken, but yeah, that's why I had it and I was playing with it. He was actually the one responsible for this, and he made it into a little toy. Like the toy was like a lot bigger. I'm sure I'll have it on screen somewhere if I could find like a picture or even like a video of it being used. It was a lot bigger, and it would like kind of come out and like grab things, and people would use it to grab things. Like tell me, like even if when you're an adult, like you have kids and you don't be playing with this. Okay, this is fun. I I know what you're thinking. Where does the Yakuza fit into all of this? You're probably thinking some guy named Nintendo subverted his Yakuza family's oppressive wish for him to be the head of their crime family to instead found a children's toy company. While that does sound like it would be a lovely plot to a great anime, it's not true at all. Here's the real origin story of Nintendo and how they got entangled with the Yakuza. Nintendo had a long history in the much less desirable avenues of manufacturing gambling cards and running love hotels. All very shady and highly profitable ventures. Gambling was unfortunately made illegal in 1882 in Japan. In 1889, Nintendo was founded to create Hanafuda, or flower playing cards, to be used exclusively in Yakuza-owned gaming parlors. When this niche market was no longer profitable, Nintendo founded a string of love hotels to be used by, and you guessed it, the Yakuza. In the 60s, having ties to criminal organizations was no longer acceptable or in vogue. The then dying company would begin to sever its ties permanently to the Yakuza. While the tragic passing of Gunpei was ruled an accident by Japanese officials, many people weren't convinced that this is what actually happened. Let's pretend for one moment that Nintendo did hire Yakuza to murder Gunpei. What would be the motive? I can come up with a few possibilities. Motive number one is by far the most popular. Although Yokoi was the mastermind behind several Nintendo successes, not all of his ideas were bangers. After the massive flop of his penultimate invention, the Virtual Boy, Yokoi left the company in 1996. He and a few of his subordinates formed a direct Nintendo competitor company named Koto. Internet sleuths theorized the Virtual Boy's failure drove Nintendo to murder. Another motive could be rooted in gang loyalty. Yokoi's 31-year tenure isn't unusual for Nintendo employees. President Yamauchi and Legend of Zelda creator Shigeru Miyamoto have been with Nintendo for longer than some of us watching this video have been alive. The reason higher level execs don't leave the company is because they can't. Once you're a Yakuza member,
you stay a Yakuza member.
The most likely motive, in my opinion, is plain old business competition. Yokoi retired to form a rival company. Remember earlier in the video, President Yamauchi was the one who discovered Yokoi had a talent for toy and game design. It's safe to assume that Yamauchi and Yokoi must have become close friends after 31 years of working together. Under Yamauchi's leadership and Yokoi's genius, Nintendo was able to break from Yakuza's influence and transform into this wholesome, really extremely profitable company that we know today. But were they able to sever all of their unsavory ties? President Yamauchi tapped into Nintendo's Yakuza connections to commit the ultimate betrayal and end his friend and former protege's life. Just to be clear, there is no evidence for this whatsoever. I'm really having fun and telling you what other people have speculated over the years. Okay, so you won't be surprised that the evidence for this Yakuza theory is in fact very sparse. What they usually claim is, like I've already told you, the connections between the Yakuza and Nintendo, and then they say the death overall was suspicious. Why was Yokoi the only one to die, even really get injured? Did the driver purposely ram into Yokoi and miss everyone else on purpose? That's it. That's really all the evidence that I was able to find anyone saying anyway. So that's really it for the evidence portion of this video. Now, let's take a look at some evidence against this theory. It's utter and complete nonsense. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Okay, seriously, there are some compelling arguments to debunk this conspiracy theory. Let's examine the Yakuza argument. There is absolutely no proof whatsoever that the Yakuza continued to be involved with Nintendo after the 1970s. So you guys may know of the Nintendo video game called Yakuza that was involved in a lawsuit fairly recently. From that lawsuit, we were able to be privy to a clause that Nintendo has for, people that they do business with. So it basically bars anyone who does business with them from working with any sort of criminal organization. The truth is, this is anything but unusual for Japanese businesses. This is an excerpt from Nippon.com article No Way Out: The Dilemma of Japan's Ex-Yakuza. It was the 1991 passage of the Act on Prevention of Unjust Acts by Organized Crime Group members that laid the groundwork for declining Yakuza membership by erecting legal barriers to alienate the Yakuza from the rest of society. The exclusion ordinances strengthened these barriers at the local level, cutting off even legitimate sources of income. To be associated with the Japanese organized crime group today is to be denied one's constitutional right to maintain the minimum standards of wholesome and cultured living. Yokoi died in 1997, well after these laws and ordinances were able to take effect. It just would not be worth it for Yamauchi or the Yakuza to plot to murder Gunpei. And on top of that, when the Yakuza actually did do mercenary work, they historically made it look like a suicide. They would never stage some elaborate car accident like involving all these different variables and people. As far as not being able to leave the Yakuza and by proxy Nintendo, that's just not true at all either. Yakuza members seeking to defect actually have a way. They do it by committing this thing called yubitsume. Yubitsume is the practice of slicing off the top of your pinky finger. Nintendo employees frequently resign. In fact, the driver of the car that Gunpei was in, he is already retired himself, and Yokoi made it known that he was planning to retire around age 50, which he was a few years older than that, but he retired basically on time. As far as the Virtual Boy argument, it was actually Nintendo's fault that the Virtual Boy was such a massive flop. Yokoi told the execs that it was nowhere near ready to be released. Nintendo had another project at that time called the Nintendo 64 in production, and they released the Virtual Boy long before it was ready in order to focus on the Nintendo 64. The Virtual Boy was a precursor to virtual reality, and surprise, people love VR games. So if they would have given Gunpei the proper time that he had asked for, who's to say the Virtual Boy wouldn't have been a huge success? I think it would have been. Okay, I know what you're thinking. What about the driver who hit Gunpei? Surely he must have some shady Yakuza connections. You're wrong. The driver was 55-year-old Gen Tsushima, and he was a worker in the tourism industry, and he actually had his wife in the car with him. So if he was like some shady Yakuza mercenary, why would he bring his wife along? That makes no sense. Conspiracy theorists actually expect us to believe that Gen, his wife, Kiso, they were all involved in this secret plot to kill Yokoi at Yamauchi's behest for reasons. No, I don't think so. Look, the real story here is the tragedy of a life taken too soon. Gunpei Yokoi left behind a wife, he left behind family, he left behind friends who loved him. And video games mean a lot to people, more than just a hobby to pass the time. The world is poor for Yokoi's death. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and tell me what you think. Do you actually believe this conspiracy or not? Or is there something else you want to see me cover that's true crime and nerd related at the same time, let me know. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, go ahead and like and subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.